and welcome to the League of Women Voters Meet the Candidates Forum, a program produced in collaboration with WTJX for well over 35 years. I am Felecita Saldana Richards, moderator for today's program. As I live with and care for an elderly relative who may be immunocompromised due to advanced age, I have chosen to wear masks for today's program. I ask your understanding and acceptance of my decision as I strive to protect her. It is the League's hope that through these programs that you, the voting public, will have a better understanding of each candidate running for elective office in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We invite you to look at all our programs for the 2022 election year right here on WTJX, with candidates seeking office as a senator in the 35th legislature, or as governor, or as lieutenant governor. Although all candidates for these positions were invited, not all responded or accepted the invitation. We are delighted to have here today 3 candidates running for the position of senator in the St. Thomas-St. John district. These candidates have been informed in advance of the guidelines for the program. No candidate had access to the questions in advance. The first responder to each question will be rotated among the participants. Answers will generally be kept to 60 seconds. Changes in timing of a question will be announced in advance. Any comment directed specifically at another participant will be followed by a rebuttal of 60 seconds. All are expected to be respectful of everyone. So, let's begin. I will ask each candidate to identify who they are and to state their political affiliation and ballot number. We will learn more about each as our discussion ensues. Let's start with Senator Alma Francis-Heyliger.
Thank you. Good day. My name is Senator Alma Francis-Heyliger. I'm an independent candidate and number 8 on the ballot.
Good day. I'm Joel Browne-Connors, your Democratic senatorial candidate, number 9 on the ballot.
Candidate Henry.
Good day. I'm Dawn Henry. I'm an independent candidate, and I am number 5 on the ballot.
Now for our first question. Let's begin by talking about your readiness to be a senator. Here is a 2-part question for which you will have 60 seconds to answer. As a candidate for a seat in the VI legislature, what are your competencies as well as education or training that will make you a good choice to address our issues as a senator? And what are your recent accomplishments that show your skills and readiness to assume the responsibilities of the office? What are your competencies and your accomplishments related to the responsibilities of the position? You will have 60 seconds, and we will begin with our first candidate, Senator Francis-Heyliger.
Good day. Well, what I will say is I have already been afforded the opportunity by the people of this territory to serve as their representative. I am currently sitting as a senator in the 34th legislature, and I will say as a freshman senator, I was able to utilize my skills of negotiation, compromise, lobbying, to really work with my 14 colleagues in order to pass several pieces of legislation throughout the 34th legislature thus far. I have been fortunate that I will be the freshman senator with the most pieces of legislation passed in this legislature, and I have to say I thank my colleagues for their support on many of these bills. What I will say is that I do hope that if I am reelected to the 35th legislature, I will have individuals that I could work with to make sure I continue to get the people's work done. As it relates to my capabilities and or accomplishments, one of the things that I have been very most proud of is I am now an owner of a radio station That for me is the pulse of the people, and it gives me an opportunity through many years to really reach out to the public. Thank you.
Candidate Browne-Connors.
Good day. So I am Joel Browne-Connors, and for the last 10 years, I've served as in a professional capacity here as an emergency medical technician with the Department of Health. I've served as the commander for the St. Thomas Civil Patrol Cadet Program. I've served as currently serving as a police officer. I serve as the outreach coordinator for VITEMA and the CERT program director as the Community Emergency Response Team director. I'm also a small business owner. So within my time serving in these capacities, I've seen firsthand the issues affecting the territory, and it is I'm looking forward to serving the community and making laws and helping amend legislation to better the quality of life for the individuals here in the territory. So I am Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on the ballot.
Candidate Attorney Don Henry.
Good day. My name is Don Henry, and as an attorney for the Division of Environmental Protection, where I worked for 10 years, serving the people of the Virgin Islands and protecting our environment, I bring to the table analytical skills. And also through my experience, I was able to host and work with the community in many, many public hearings. Also, I had the opportunity and the privilege of becoming the commissioner for the Department of Planning and Natural Resources under former Governor Mapp. And during my tenure, I was, along with my colleagues, there were over 200 employees in DPNR, and we managed a budget of $30 million. And some of my accomplishments during my tenure include we were able to get the Division of Fish and Wildlife off of high risk. We were able to get the Division of Environmental Protection technical programs off of high risk. I was able to, through the teamwork, we were able to bring in $10 million for historic structures, and we have many, many more accomplishments. So I'm looking forward to this discussion here today. Thank you.
Thank you all. The next question, let's talk about your vision for the Virgin Islands. 2027 will mark the 100th anniversary of American citizenship for Virgin Islanders and 110 years since purchase from Denmark. The question is, what is your vision with respect to self-governance for the U.S. Virgin Islands, and what role do you intend to play, if any? And please note that self-governance does not necessarily imply independence. We'll begin with candidate Browne-Connors.
Good day. So the first part of the question was, where do we see the territory in the next several years? So within my platform like this, I talk about the youth development, agriculture development, and emergency services. So within the next few years, I see great improvement in the workforce, I see great improvement in our agricultural development, where we can bring in and produce our own food, and cut back on the importation from whether the Puerto Rico or stateside. I also see, the boost in the workforce, bringing in youths to serve as first responders, police, EMT, firefighters, and that will increase, the first response workforce and avoid us from having to bring in stateside workers again to serve here in the territory. So when it comes to self-governance, the second part of the question was, I'm not against self-governance, but we're here serving, we've been, operating this thus far, and we've been, as I feel, working in such a great capacity that we could just adapt and work forward with the revised Organic Act and continue where we're at would be a better situation for us. So again, Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
Candidate Henry?
Yes. So for a very, very long time, I have had in my mind this vision of the Virgin Islands where people all over the world, that they would look at us and say, look at those people in the Virgin Islands, look at how they do it, and they want to do what we do. That is my overall vision for the Virgin Islands, that we become so prosperous that everybody wants to live in this beautiful place and they acknowledge what we have here. When it comes to self-governance, I think that it's very important for us as a people to have a constitution. I really believe that it's a mark and it shows a sign of unity. It shows a sign that we have taken into account the basic rights of all of our people, and we want to be able to confer that on paper so that we have a broad understanding of where we're going in the future. Thank you.
Senator Francis-Heyliger?
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, my vision for the Virgin Islands, as my fellow debater stated, has to do a lot to deal with us in processing and prosperity. I think it's very important as Virgin Islanders that we collectively work together, especially as leaders, to make sure that everything that we do is moving us forward in a positive way. Unfortunately, from sitting in this position, I feel a lot of times we are very reactive as opposed to proactive. We wait a lot of times for things to build up and then cause more issues and damage as opposed to tackling it head on. And I also am a firm believer in having a constitution. Currently in the legislature, we are going through the process of bringing forward the 6th Constitutional Convention. And I think that the elements of that, for me, potentially including things of an elected attorney general, various things that directly will impact the people, I think is very important to be crafted into that document so we could have a platform and a plan for the future for all generations to come in this territory. Thank you.
Our next question focuses on moral and ethical behavior. To what extent should moral or ethical issues in the private life of political candidates be taken into account by voters in making their choices, and why? We'll begin with you, Candidate Henry.
So I think that's a very good question, and it's really timely because I feel like as a citizen and from being on the campaign trail, hearing from other voters, that there's such a mistrust in the community. So I do believe that the moral standard that the candidates have, it's very important. I believe that people ought to be able to give their word and be taken by their word. And for me, what guides me and my moral standards is that I am a believer, and that is the road in which dictates me every day. So I want to say to the people of the Virgin Islands that I will do my best to put forth and to walk every day at a standard that you will feel like you can trust, at a standard that you will be proud of, and at a standard that will be able to help move our islands forward and we can become a better people.
Senator Heyliger, thank you, Candidate Henry.
I think it's very, very important that our representatives and leaders have very high ethical standards as well as moral behavior. If we're asking the people to represent them, we're asking them to be the very best of the best. We're asking them, trust me and my abilities to make decisions on your behalf. And when it comes to that, they're going to be looking up to you and saying, hey, if I'm going to trust you, I expect you to carry yourself a specific way. I expect you to behave a particular way. Unfortunately, as a member of the institution, we've had to deal with some situations within the 34th that did involve some situations of morality and ethical behavior. But it is my hope that during this particular term, that the decisions that we made were a representation of the public understanding that we do hold these things in high regard, and it's important that they understand that they could trust our abilities to showcase and be the very best that we can be in our representation of them as their employee. Thank you.
Candidate Browne-Connors.
Yes, so as a police officer, moral and ethical conduct plays a big role, and it is taught, it's actual class taught within the academy. So holding anybody in power or in position to a standard is, of course, needed. However, we have to remember that we are still human, so we do make mistakes. With that being said, when we do make a mistake, whether in office or in any other government agencies, we just should be held at the same standard we hold the community to. So the law should apply to us equally, as in what's good for one is good for the next, despite my position or role within the government. So that is my take on it. And again, that's Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
Thank you. Now we'll move into some areas of major concern for our community. In a recent poll of the electorate in 2022, voters identified 4 areas of major concern as being education, crime, health, and WAPA. Let's look at each one separately and address what your responses would be for these matters if elected to the 35th legislature. So, with respect to education, cited by voters as one of the 4 major concerns, what do you see as the primary challenges facing education today? And what would be your strategies for addressing them as a senator in the 35th legislature? We're back to you, Senator.
Okay, no problem. I think for me, in understanding what is happening with our educational process, we had some issues when it came to Irma and Maria recently over the past couple years that impacted us time-wise, as well as this pandemic. Our children had to go to virtual. And I think that has unfortunately played a large role in putting back a little bit of the education of our children. I think we have to seriously tap back into figuring out how we're going to propel them, and really, especially when it comes to our government and the Department of Education having the largest sum of the budget, that we have to figure out how the bulk of the money is actually getting to the students as opposed to being spent at the top. When you do analysis and you look at how much per child is being spent, it's on an average about $12,000 per child. But the question still remains, how much of that money is actually getting to them for their education? We also have to be reminded that the next generation is the generation that's going to be our leaders. It's going to be our doctors. It's going to be our individuals in the grocery store. But what's going to happen if they are not equipped with the tools in order to really propel and push this Virgin Islands forward? We have to do a much better job, and even myself sitting on the Senate floor and asking questions of the Board of Elections or even the Board of Education or either Department of Education. These are some of the things that I inquire to understand in order that I could make better decisions on behalf of the people to help with the education of our children. Thank you.
Candidate Browne-Connors, education.
So education, perfect topic. So I've seen within the last several years, dating back from before the storm, we have a decrease in teachers, So that is one issue that the students are facing. The technology has taken over the modern world, and I don't think we're fully up to par. We're still using textbooks in school. During the virtual learning, everybody got equipped with laptops and Wi-Fi, and it helped and that was just for getting to school or being on the Zoom camera. However, when it comes to the upgrade in technology, the community in itself, the youths have already advanced, and we're already surfing the net every day. We're doing all our learning on the net, and then we go to school to read out of books. Books are outdated. So we have to upgrade the technology for the students to learn, and then they need the social skills. However, when you look at the social skills they needed, they're going to school and they're disrupting the classrooms. They call them fights. There are not enough staff at the school to maintain the students and keep them into the learning environment. But with me, my problem was going to school every day, doing the exact same thing every single day. It becomes a problem. So the youths need more outings. They need to switch it up. and do different things to get them more engaged and involved in actual learning time. You know, again, Joel Browne-Connors is number 9 on your ballot.
Candidate Henry?
Yes. So I'm a parent, just like many of you. And my daughter, when we would get up in the morning, if she did not say she didn't feel well about going to school, I would tell her, listen, mommy and daddy going to work, and your job is to go to school. We set standards for her, and we made sure that she lived up to those standards. And our children are very much capable of surpassing any federal standards that are set before them. We just need to set them up and put them in the position to succeed. It's sad to hear that 85% of our students are reading below grade level. It's sad to hear it's even higher when it comes to math. So what should we do? What should we do? We need to, starting with a cohort of, let's say, second, third graders, we need to invest in this cohort and take them straight to high school, that making them have everything that they need in the classroom to succeed. And when they graduate, we will see that they will bring back to us, give back to us many folds in terms of the investment. We see it with our children every day. After school programs that excel in math and in reading. We need to have after school programs in technical skills. We know when we talk about electricity and plumbing and all of these types of things. So I'm really looking forward to playing my role in education.
Thank you. We'll move on to the area of health, which has been cited by voters as one of the top 4 major concerns here in the Virgin Islands. So many leave the territory in search of health care, especially on St. Croix. What do you see as the primary challenges regarding health care, and what would be your strategies for addressing them as a senator in the 35th legislature? We'll begin with you, Mr. Browne-Connors.
So when it comes to healthcare, as an EMT, I've seen firsthand, people without Medicare, without insurance, trying to get service, and most of these people that come in, most of the patients come in, have to be flown out, and without insurance, unless you have a large bank account, you're not going to be flown. You're going to be stabilized here, and you're going to sit here and wait until something happens. So, we could look at ways to provide health care for everyone, provide insurance for everyone, but in the reality of it is we got to make sure our facilities are up to date. We have to make sure that we have the doctors here to deal with the issues that we have that's presented to us. Strokes, we don't have a stroke center here. Someone has a stroke, we stabilize them and have to send them off island. Heart attacks, same issue. We know what the issues our people are, but yet we don't have the doctors within the facility, and it goes back again to the rate that we pay them at. They come here and they see our rates and say, well, listen, I'm not going to work for that. So then you have the doctors that open up their own private practice, and then we can't afford to go to their private practice because they're doing operations at their outpatient operations in their centers, and it's costing us way more than it would have cost to do it in the hospitals. So there's a lot to be worked on when it comes to healthcare, but the main thing is getting insurance for the people, because yes, with government insurance, we're all happy. It's less costly for us, but for those who don't have insurance, it really puts them in a bind where part they decide not to go and seek service when they have an issue, and that is a problem in general. Again, Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
Attorney Henry?
Yes, so listen, healthcare is an economy of itself. I heard today that we're spending in insurance premiums about $121 million a year, and the lion's share of that goes to places like Florida, New York, Texas. So we are building up other states' economy, healthcare economy, while we watch ours languish. And we have to recognize that that is an issue. We have to invest in our own healthcare system. We have to find incentives where Virgin Islanders, especially those that are insured, that they stay at home, and keep the dollars at home. And where do we start with that? To me, it's clear. First of all, we got to get a hospital in St. Croix. People have to have a hospital to go to. St. John, the clinic on St. John. St. Jonians have been crying out forever about the clinic on St. John. We could take the clinic on St. John and turn it into a premier wellness center. That could be St. John's niche. St. Thomas, we have the cancer center. Let's really, really make that robust and have other people coming, medical tourism. But most importantly, and candidate Browne just mentioned that, my dad, he had a stroke, and it was so heart-wrenching for me to see so much that he would have gotten in the States that he did not receive here at Roy Lester Snyder Hospital. I know they did their best, but it is a fact. I am Dawn Henry, number 5 on your ballot.
Senator Heyliger, Francis-Heyliger.
Thank you. It is very unfortunate that here in our territory that about 1/3 of the people here do not have access to health insurance. I am fortunate where, as a government worker, I do have an opportunity to have health insurance, but it does not take away from the fact that I represent the people of this territory, and I want that for them. When we speak about the concerns of individuals having to leave the territory and some of the stories that come to me of families being torn apart because one member had to relocate just to get cancer treatment when they really wanted to be at home with their family. When you have individuals that have to be flown out to have specialty services because they're not available here, I think we have to focus a lot more on really making sure that the types of services and doctors are here in the territory, whether we have to create programs to get them here. We have programs for the EDA where we try to solicit businesses to come here to this territory. As a legislator, we could create laws that are really going to reach out and tap into individuals to want to relocate here to the territory to give the type of services to the people of the Virgin Islands. I think across the board that our health, our wellness is so important to us, but we also have to make sure that when it comes to our representatives, that we hold their feet to the fire, inclusive of myself, to make sure that we work very hard to get insurance for all the people of this territory. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to what has been cited as one of our 4 areas of concern, crime. What do you see as the challenges, and what would be your strategies for addressing them as a senator in the 35th legislature? We will begin with you, Attorney Henry.
Yes. So I see crime as the result, and we really have to get at what the root of the problem is. And I see it as 3 prongs. The first is family. I grew up in Warrenny Brown Bluebirds, and we were a very close-knit community. Parents got involved. Parents made sure homework was done. And I think that we have lost a little bit of that because our family structure, it's slowly deteriorating because a lot of people have to move off island, and all of these types of things weaken our family. So we have to be purposeful about understanding the importance of parents in households, the importance of encouraging our children, and really strengthening the family unit. Number 2, we talked about it earlier, education. Education, education. It is the great equalizer. It really opens the doors and provides opportunities. I think you're going to find it very hard and very difficult to find somebody on the street corner who went to college, is educated, and they're on the street corner with nothing to do, and you know what they talk about, idle hands. So I think education is very, very critical and important. And with that component goes opportunities. We have to be able to diversify our market where our young people would stay at home with the education that they have sought, and they could get jobs that are commensurate to their education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Henry. Senator Francis-Heyliger?
Thank you. I think when it comes to crime, it's something that's close to me. Recently, I did an interview on my own brother's murder and how that has impacted not only myself, but the family as a unit. One of the things I tell people with crime here in the territory is we brush off a lot of things and assume that people are able to just move on without recognizing that that is the individual, that mother in the jewelry store that now has to deal with the loss of her son, and you just want her to progress, and you still have so many unsolved murders here in the territory. But I can't just jump directly to crime itself. I look at it from the socioeconomic issues that we do have here, such as poverty, such as dealing with education, such as how do we teach our children to understand and respect humanity and realize that simply because you might have a dispute, that the only resolution is not to take somebody else's life. I think encompassing many of these things, we're going to have to recognize that holistically as a people, we have to come together as a community to want better and to speak out more about the crimes that's happening here to help reduce crime. You know, if things happen, I am a firm believer, if you see something, say something. And when it comes to dealing with our own police department, one of the things I believe they need to improve upon is community interaction. It is very disheartening when someone walks into a police station and they're trying to give a report and they have to go back and forth with an individual just simply trying to get a report, answer the phone, and do many things without getting their message out. You have to speak to people, communicate for a better overall situation when it comes to crime. Thank you.
Candidate Browne-Connors.
Thank you. So crime is a big topic of mine. It's a very touchy topic as well. So recently, most of the crimes that are occurring are within the young people. And I did some studies, and as a police officer, of course, we've seen a lot of arrestees come in, all under the age of 26. So what I see one of the problems is that we can't stop crime because crime is going to always be there, but we can definitely reduce it. And why the young people are involved in so much criminal activities now is, according to them, is we don't publicize them enough. We don't reward them for their good behavior. I mean, before, when I was in school, you made an honor roll, there was a parade for you. They parade you up and down the street like, you know, hey, we acknowledge you. We stop all of these activities, acknowledging the good that we do as young people. Then you have, I mean, when we fail to acknowledge them, so we go out now, they commit crimes just to be acknowledged. So they're not being acknowledged at home, they're not being acknowledged at school, they're not being acknowledged in the media. So they see the media and they want to be up there. And I brought in young people, and the first thing they ask in the booking room when they're being processed is this the picture that's going to be on consortium? And then they ask if they could do the hair, and then they smile in these pictures. So to them, it's a game. Obviously, committing a crime is a game to them, but if we publicize them more for the good that they do, that'll help reduce some of the crime within the young people, you know. And then moving on from there, the poverty is the issue. There's a lot more to it than just publicizing them, but giving them that opportunity to be recognized for something more than just criminal activities would help them reduce, you know, the activities that they've been involved in and getting locked up for these lengthy amount of times. So again, it's a long topic for me. I'd like to go on, but my time has been called. I'm Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
Now, with respect to WAPA, as one of the top concerns cited by voters, what do you see as the major challenges for WAPA, and what would be your strategies for addressing them as a senator in the 35th legislature? We will begin with you, Senator Francis-Heyliger.
Well, as a senator in the 34th, we attempted to address some of the issues with WAPA. As a member of the Energy and Infrastructure Subcommittee, we really tried to tackle it from the perspective of maybe changing around the board members to get individuals on the board that was more technically inclined and savvy when it came to energy to make better decisions. One of the biggest things that came out had to do with the audit through the Inspector General's office of some of the very bad decisions that was made by WAPA, some of the decisions that were put in place to help decrease the rate of electricity here in the territory has exponentially increased our cost. I'm going to speak right now from a business owner perspective. WAPA is wreaking havoc on businesses in our territory, plain and simple. I literally had to do a full energy audit to try to even cut my bill a small percentage. When it came to dealing with the water issue, this is a topic that frustrates me, not only as a business person, but also as a representative. My goal and my ultimate choices that I make as a representative is to help reduce the cost of electricity for the people of this territory. It is my hope that once reelected to the 35th legislature, I could work with my colleagues to make sure that we do other things to guarantee that these costs will be reduced across the board, for me to include really soliciting and trying to get new plants and generators that are more cost effective to reduce the cost. Thank you.
Candidate Browne-Connors, WAPA.
Oh, thank you.
WAPA. The main issue is keeping the power on. As a resident and business owner, the main issue that we have is the stability of the power plant. Power is always going off. And then you have these extreme bills. So the issue that I'm seeing as a business owner and living in my own home is the cost. The cost is one, but we're not complaining about the cost. We're complaining about keeping the power on. But then the cost of the bills go up so high because of faulty equipment and lack of manpower. So those two things are affecting us at the same time. They're not out there reading the meters anymore. And I'm very certain that the bills that I'm getting are not actual bills. These have to be estimated bills that they're sending out. So we look at other options, and one of the options is solar. Everybody's talking about solar. We've been talking about it for quite some time now. However, I did my own studies for people that have solar, and it is effective because the power stays on. However, when it comes to there's no sun during a storm, then the power is still off. You know, we look at running a generator. The fuel cost is high. You know, so right now we are concerned about the cost, but the major complaint is if we're going to pay this high rate, keep the power on. So faulty equipment, you know, and the funding, I don't know what else they need, but it's something to look into further to get the power stable so that we can have a better quality of life here in the Virgin Islands. So Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
Candidate Henry.
So I was recently talking with my friend in Florida, and they had a little storm and the power went out. And she said to me, WAPA strikes again. Not wanting to make light of the situation, but you understand that what we're talking about here, I'm 54 years old, and I have never known WAPA to not have power generation problems. It's been way too long. So what can we do? We need to do what we see is happening all over the world. We need to diversify our grid. I think that one of the things at the Virgin Islands that we have done very well is that we mandated that single-family household, residential, that they need to have cisterns. And that has saved us time and time and time again. We need to look at thinking along those lines when it comes to diversifying our grid. And with solar would help because on a regular day-to-day basis, it will contribute electricity towards the grid. That's for free. That will reduce the cost. And we need to really look at being able to provide those at individual homes. We also need to look at microgrids so that when the plant goes down at WAPA, it doesn't affect the entire St. John, St. Thomas district, including St. Croix. So we need to look at microgrids. And we have to hold WAPA accountable in terms of their finances and being able to really account for the dollars and the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about economic development. Let's talk about growing the economy. While tourism is the backbone of our economy, the majority of the electorate do not work in that industry. Many work in government, but that does little to bring in new dollars. So what's left is the private sector. What have you done or plan to do as a senator to grow or support the private sector and to encourage more locals to become successful in the private sector? We will start with Mr. Browne-Connors.
Growing the economy and the economy as a whole. So helping the economy grow right now, we're looking at agriculture. Everybody talked about agriculture. However, I am an actual farmer, and agriculture is the way of the future, and it is something that we definitely have to take serious. So when we talk about tourism, I match agriculture and tourism together. And what I realized that over my years of farming here and living in the territories, we seem like we have forgotten that the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, is actually a Caribbean island. We look at it as, we treat it as such, the U.S. However, this is a Caribbean island, and when the tourists come to the Virgin Islands, they look for that Caribbean aspect, and small business owners like myself, and anyone that wants to get into the business, we can take that agriculture, whether it's livestock or produce, to a whole new level. When we go to any other Caribbean island, I travel every year to the different Caribbean islands, and they all have an agricultural industry. You get off the ship, we look at produce, we look at horseback riding, and we have none of those opportunities here in the Virgin Islands, in St. Thomas and John, for the tourists to do as they come off of the ship. So that is the opportunity there for individuals to open a business doing such, farming and selling the produce, or horseback riding, local farms, for the tourist industry. That'll help them and help the economy on a whole. Again, Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
Your response, Attorney Henry?
So I think, just like the other speakers, we need to diversify our economy. We need to continue to work with tourism, but one of the things that I think we need to do is, number one, it still takes way too long for individuals to get a business license. We've been trying to crack that nut for a long time, and I think it's essential that we make that system, that process, easy and accessible, and that is something that I would commit to doing if I'm elected to the 35th legislature. Second, young people. Again, we want those that are away to come home and those that are here to stay. So what can we do? We can say, like, within a certain age group, if you want to start up a business, the government is going to give you a certain tax break for a certain particular amount of time so that you can get your business started off the ground. We have all of these different neighborhoods within St. Thomas and St. John. Let's bring little grocery stores, maybe fresh fruits and vegetables, things that will meet the community needs and give people the opportunity to start businesses that meet our needs. Thank you.
Senator Francis, thank you, Attorney Henry. Senator Francis-Heyliger, the question is the economy.
Thank you. I do concur with my other individuals here at this table that diversification is the wave of the future here for our territory. Tourism is a very strong aspect of us, but we have to figure out how to really tap into other resources, such as we have VINGN, which speaks to broadband, and all the things that could potentially run through our territory as a way of economic growth. You have agriculture, where it is very important as an individual that is married to a farmer. I know that as a people, we really have to start putting our money where our mouth is and really focusing on making sure that not only that we grow a lot more of our foods locally, but also start tapping into our economic ability to grow by creating exports. We also have to look at many things when it comes to teaching our children, our younger individuals, about entrepreneurship and wanting to have businesses of their own. So I think across the board, when it comes to our economic diversification, it's going to be key in making sure that the Virgin Islands move forward. And as a legislator, I just wanted to, help my colleague out a little bit, that during the 33rd legislature, they did change the law. So you could literally get your license in no time now. They separated it from getting your IRB, so you could get it in days now. So that was a definite plus, I will say. But, you know, if elected, we could work on something else.
Thank you, Senator Francis-Heyliger. If we could dig a little bit more into agriculture, since you have each mentioned it, and candidates have discovered that it is wise to talk about promoting agriculture in order to get elected. But once in office, very little is heard about strengthening agribusiness. What do you see as the challenges to making agribusiness a reality in the VI, and how would you address them as a senator? The question would fall to you, Attorney Henry, as the first person.
Yes, so I do agree. We've been talking about agriculture for a very long time. And I don't think agriculture only struggles here in the territory, but it's a nationwide problem. And one of the things that I have seen that seems to have been able to assist with the struggling farmers nationwide is they have formed co-ops. And I think that that is something that the Virgin Islands government needs to look into and talk to the farmers about, encouraging them. There are many benefits in forming a co-ops. You're able to pull your resources together. You're able to get more technologically advanced equipment again, and you're able to get finances a little bit easier. Now on St. Thomas, the real challenge that I hear from farmers has to do with water in the Bordeaux area. And one of the things that I think we can look at in terms of meeting that need is maybe getting a small RO plant that can assist the farmers in Bordeaux with that issue. And finally, I just want to say we need to find a niche. If it could be greens, everybody grow these greens. Grow them for the people of the Virgin Islands, and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Henry. Your response, Senator Heyliger?
Thank you. Agriculture is very important to me. Like I stated earlier, I'm married to a farmer, so I know this firsthand. As a legislature, I think it was very important, and it was a very good piece of legislation when it was proposed to utilize 1% of the budget. Unfortunately, they reduced it to 0.5%, which I personally don't think is enough. I think part of the problem has to do with public education, and especially the next generation coming up, thinking that farming is just going out into the dirt with a hook and a pick. I think we have to get to the point for them to understand that there's a lot of technology involved. There's hydroponics. There's many ways that you could farm. Sometimes when we hear the word farming, we just assume it's limited to, hey, we're dealing with plants. But farming is also inclusive of fishery. It's also inclusive of livestock. And there are many, many different aspects of farming that we could tap into. And for me, this is not a conversation about, you know, it's election time, it's just something to talk about. This is a way of life for us. We live in the middle of the ocean. So we have to figure out how to sustain ourselves at any given moment so that we could be able to survive if anything happens. And agriculture is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Browne-Connors.
Right, so agriculture is a big topic of mine again because I am actual farmer. I've been farming for over 16 years now. I do produce and I do livestock. I am a livestock farm, full-time livestock farmer. So I produce rabbit, chicken, and duck meat. And fresh eggs, and we have the little produce. So one of the issues that we face is we have to realize that the farmers that are now out there, they're all getting up in age. So there's not much young farmers, and when we do have young people involved in farming, the opportunity is not here for us to continue farming. And the Department of Agriculture, I mean, they need more programs and education for the young farmers. That when we come, we don't have to go and be going around and around in circles trying to figure out, can we get a piece of land? What can we do on the land? They expect you to come and say, this is what I want to do. So we have to collaborate with the young people, with the schools. The schools had the farming programs. They all have ceased. All those programs have ceased in the schools. The aquaponic farm, the hydroponic farms have all stopped. And with that being stopped, then there's no one teaching the young people about farming. So with the little bit of us that are left, you know, we have to have equipment there for them. We talked about technology. We're going into the technological world of farming, but all the folks that are out there farming aren't the ones that's going to be using those technology. it has to be the young people. And without the education and the exposure, we're going to lose the whole industry altogether.
Thank you.
Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
We are at a point in the program where I invite the candidates to answer either of any of the final questions, and one would be address any topic of concern that you have an interest in, along with your approach to addressing the topic, or identify a major piece of legislation you intend to introduce over the next 2 years as a senator and indicate why. And remember, we haven't covered the areas of medical marijuana or housing. So you might want to consider those. Attorney Henry?
Yes. So for me, I would be remiss if I didn't discuss our beautiful environment, our beaches, clean air, clean water. I think for the most part, we've done a really good job in maintaining our environment. It's to a standard that's above anything that you will really find on the mainland. And I want to encourage us to continue to do that. I assisted with instituting the plastic bag ban, and that went a long way. And there are some loopholes that if I'm elected, I would like to close those loopholes regarding the plastic bag ban. Composting. I felt like we lost the opportunity after the storms to start composting on a really large scale, to assist with farming as well. And that's something that we need to look at. You talk about the housing industry. I know a lot of people feel that gentrification is happening on St. John and on St. Thomas, and we really need to look at our housing market and the economic factors that are driving these issues that are happening in our community.
Thank you so much. Senator Francis-Heyliger?
For me, the major topic I really wanted to touch on had to do with housing here in the community. Unfortunately, we have been dealing with the situation due to the hurricanes, as well as dealing with the introduction of Airbnb in our territory. The ability to get housing has been vastly reduced. It's an unfortunate situation, but as a legislature, one of the things that I have already submitted has to do with dealing with rezoning. I recognize that how our laws are currently set up to deal with particular plot sizes and only X amount of size building can go on a particular plot size. One of the things I was looking into was really trying to alter the size of the plot so that maybe smaller and medium-sized houses can be built on these pieces of land. In doing so, we would be able to create a much larger housing market and do it a little bit more cost effectively. You know, I come from a very large family where back in the day we used to build these huge monstrosity of homes. But today, you know, it's a much smaller, intimate situation. And if we could tackle some of the zoning situations, we would be able to build smaller, medium homes where we could build more so that everyone could get a piece of paradise here in the territory. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Browne-Connors.
Yes. So my major topic is youth development, and why the youths, funding the youths will solve a lot of our issues here in the territory because the youths are the future. So my goal is to provide additional funding for youth programs. We want the youth programs to do co-curricular activities, so what they can't learn in the schools, they can learn on the weekends, they can learn after school. We want to get them all the education that they desire, but we want to keep them occupied at the same time, you know. So funding youth programs, additional funding should be there. There are programs that are being funded, but the funding is never enough. And then, of course, resources and manpower. We need adult help. We have to go back to the village mentality where it takes a village to raise the children. So funding the programs and getting adults to come out and assist and realize that it's not just me and my family, but it's our community. So if we look at the holistic picture and we decide that we're going to do so, we'll be able to solve the crime problems, we'll be able to solve the housing problems, and any other problem that may arise in the territory because the youths are there and they're trained and qualified to say they're going to provide for the Virgin Islands. Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot.
Thank you. Now, candidates, you will have 30 seconds each for a closing statement. We're going to start with you, Senator Francis-Heyliger.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for affording us this opportunity to really come here and share our thoughts. I also wish good luck to the other 2 individuals here, because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to serve in the legislature, but to also be a representative on behalf of the people. I, as a current sitting senator, have done a lot of work, and I'm just simply asking that the people give me an opportunity again to continue to be their employee and work on their behalf and really, really do my very best to make sure that everything that I do speaks to prosperity, speaks to productivity, and an overall well-rounded Virgin Islands for all of us. Thank you.
Candidate Browne-Connors.
Yes, so I do want to thank the League of Women Voters and WTJX for inviting me to be part of this interview. You know, it was a great topic, and again, I do want to serve the community. I am a man of vision, innovator. So I want to say again to the people, I am Joel Browne-Connors, number 9 on your ballot. I am making what's important to you important to me, and I just want to say, take God with you everywhere you go, and where you can't take Him, don't go. Thank you again. Oh, right.
Candidate Attorney Henry.
Yes. So I too want to thank the League of Women Voters and WTJX and all of the senators that have served before, because we stand on their shoulders with the progress that we've made here in the Virgin Islands. And I thank Almighty God that, you know, I was born in this beautiful place, this little speck in the world, and I would do my best to make sure that the Virgin Islands move forward with prosperity, that we are people, that we stand with our shoulders erect, and we are proud. I am Dawn Henry, and I'm number 5 on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And thank you, WTJX and staff, for today's program. Thank you all for watching and for understanding my choice for Mass today. The League of Women Voters hopes this program has helped with your understanding of the candidates, and in so doing, will inform your vote in November. I am Felecita Richards for the League of Women Voters of the Virgin Islands, saying vote early or vote in November, but vote.